We witnessed this week the largest funeral procession in the world being held in Iran for the funeral of the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei of Iran, that was killed, of course, by Israel and the US. So far, this is a whole week, and so far, more than 9 million people attended. And it's expected that in total, it's going to be 20 million people. Look at how many people. This is outside the building. I mean, of course, this is not going to fit all the people in the building where the funeral is happening. And this is at night even. It's day and night. Like, it's an insane amount of people. In addition to the millions of people that we're seeing attend the funeral, 70 countries plus sent the government officials to come and give their condolences to the Iranian government, including the Qataris and including the Saudis. Saudi Arabia actually sent officials to come to give their condolences. These are the Qataris. And these are the Saudis, which was very shocking for people because Saudi was part of the fight in a way that facilitated the attacks on Iran. So it's very interesting to see a different relationship now post-war. And, here are some of the officials that were sent. I'm just going to note the interesting ones. So, Armenia sent their prime minister, who was a high-level, very high-level government official. Georgia sent their president. India sent their special government envoy and deputy foreign minister. Iraq sent their president, parliament speaker, several officials. And the Kurdistan area of Iraq sent their president too. Kazakhstan, their foreign minister. Lebanon sent their defense minister. And Hezbollah High Political Delegation and Amal High Delegation. Amal is the one of the parliament members or groups that is in parliament in Lebanon. Pakistan sent their prime minister and army chief Munir, Senate speaker, Shia leaders, and delegation. So Qatar sent parliament speaker and delegation, and Saudi Arabia sent their deputy foreign minister and delegation. Tajikistan sent their president. And even Yemen attended, where you saw Iran break the siege and embargo by sending an airplane to land in Yemen to break the siege that is applied by Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries. And once it broke the siege to bring, I think it was people who were ill from Iran, Yemenis that were stuck in Iran, drop them in Yemen and then take back this delegation to Iran to attend the funeral. I'm assuming this is going to continue now to, airplanes are going to go from Iran to Yemen. But when you look at the, foreign news, like BBC, you don't see the large, this is the only picture they show of large crowds. And it's not really showing how many people are actually there. This is it. Kill Trump. That's what they're showing. I mean, they're barely showing anything. They're not saying this is going to be the biggest, although they do say Iranian authorities. Remember, Iranian authorities say 12 to 20 million people are expected to attend the ceremonies. But they could easily have shown a video to showcase how many people actually support the government or are there to show respect to the late leader. And this is the FT. I hear they're showing a video actually. A second video. 1 second. And this small box is the granddaughter of the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who was also killed in those initial strikes against his residence. And yeah, little girl. Yeah, not much in terms of actually showing huge crowds of people as a. I mean, even in this picture, it's kind of covering the crowd, but it's such a good picture. I like it. Now, what does this all show us? This whole funeral procession, where there's millions of people pouring on the streets to support the government, the late leader of Iran. You have to remember that before this war, Iran was isolated. We were told that it was a weak country, that it was a house of cards, that one final push, it's on its last legs, it's going to fall apart, that everyone wants the government out. You can see it on the streets, they're coming out. The government is this ruthless dictatorship that's killing its people, and everyone wants it gone. And the decades of that kind of vision that the news keeps on portraying for people has been demolished in just a few weeks of war, where what we saw was as an Iran that is strong, that is capable, that had the capability to carry out massive attacks, but it didn't until it was attacked. It was waiting to be attacked. I mean, think about it even from the perspective of waiting to be attacked, knowing there's going to be an attack on your country, but you can't do anything because you don't want to be seen as the aggressor. So you wait to be attacked for your leader to be killed, who was waiting in his house to be killed, basically, because everyone knew that the wars can happen, especially the intelligence in the US and Iran and a lot of countries knew that. So the leaders of Iran knew that there was going to be an attack, and the first thing they were going to do is attack the leaders. And he waited. And so that image, the decades of propaganda of Iran being a weak, isolated country has been demolished in just a few weeks of this war, where now Iran is emerging as a global, definitely a regional power, at least, whereby there's better diplomatic relationship with other countries now, because they're realizing Iran's not going to go away. Iran is now showing up in a much stronger way, building a new security agreement within the Middle East that involves Pakistan, that involves Turkey, that involves Egypt, and removing U.S. influence, because now the region is waking up to the fact that U.S. doesn't have the capability to carry out those attacks and defend the countries that it's supposed to defend. That's the reason why we have those U.S. bases. It's supposedly to defend the countries. But this war showed that wasn't the case, that the U.S. doesn't have that capability, that the U.S. couldn't even plan. They just thought that this was going to be a couple of days of just killing the leadership and everything's going to fall apart, which tells you how bad were their intelligence. I mean, this is incompetence at another level that we've never seen. This is a strategy that has backfired so much from the objective of doing regime change, or at least, really weakening the Iranian government, has done the exact opposite. It's given strength to the Iranian government. And the biggest win for Iran is actually uniting the people. A lot of people that haven't experienced war with, neighboring countries or with the U.S., a lot of the only elders in Iran have faced wars, such as the Iran-US war, which was in the 80s. The younger generation don't know anything about that war, and they always envisage that, the Western countries don't want to carry out war. They want economic growth, and it's just the Iranians that were being unreasonable. Well, this all flipped with this war. They realized Iran was really trying to negotiate with the West. They were in negotiations with the West. They were giving the West the U.S. pretty much everything they wanted. They already accepted zero enrichment for 15 years plus. And even Armani, there was a foreign minister, said, we believe that there's going to be a deal because Iran is making all these concessions. Even the UK said, we were surprised by Iran's concessions. And in spite of that, they attacked Iran. And so they united the Iranian people in a way that was really unimaginable before. But at the same time, it destroyed the propaganda that been working on for decades. The West has been working on for decades of showing Iran as this ruthless but weak, irrational player that needs to be removed. When it was the most rational player, given that it was able to close the Strait of Hormuz, but it never did. It was able to carry out those strikes on the Gulf countries, but it never did. It waited to be attacked first, and then attack all the countries that in its view, facilitated plus attack, use their land plus those that actually attacked the country, being, the US and Israel actually carried out those attacks, but they used the US bases in a lot of the region and the airspace, obviously, and in some cases the land, as was shown, especially in Kuwait, where they were launching missiles from the land, not to defend Kuwait, but to actually carry out attacks on Iran in the first few days of the war. They literally, if you think about it, they did do regime change in Iran, but not in the way that they wanted. They created a much stronger government in Iran, a much more emboldened government in Iran. Can you imagine that we'd be in a situation where if Israel attacked Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, that Iran would retaliate against that? Iran would never have done that before this war, to attack Israel, for Israel attacking Hezbollah in the capital of Lebanon, or just buildings in Lebanon. That's a new Iran. That's a new government. It's the same government, but it's much more emboldened. And everyone has woken up to this fact. The fact that you see millions of people pouring into the streets, the fact that you see, thousands of people come from across the world for the funeral, the fact that you see 70 plus countries send their official government officials to give their condolences in person, in spite of pressure by the US to limit this, to ensure that, there were reports that came out that said basically that the US was saying people don't go there, make sure that you don't send a high delegation if you have to go. Because it's a huge PR issue for the US that they attack this country, but this country seems to be liked by not just a lot of millions of people in the country, but by a lot of countries in the world. And the funniest part now is that because they control the Strait of Hormuz, Iran does, a lot of countries have to build diplomatic relationships with Iran to make sure that their ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz in agreement with Iran, which, after apparently the 60 days of this MOU, has to be done in agreement with Iran applying service fees. So it's a whole new world that the US carried out, or through those attacks. Israel and the US carried out those attacks. And it's a world that is the opposite of what Israel and the US was trying to create, especially when it comes to pushing the Gulf away from Iran. Now the Gulf is moving towards Iran because they realize we can't trust the US anymore. Look what the US did. Look at the instability that the US has brought to this region. And for what? For what? What were they really trying to achieve here? Did they really think they were going to be able to achieve regime change in a few days just by killing the leadership? How out of touch can you be to actually think that? And this would have never happened if it wasn't for Israel giving information to Trump, telling him how easy it is. We're Mossad. We could do anything. We have people in place, and nothing came. I remember Benjamin Netanyahu coming up during the war. He was like, don't worry, we have a lot of different plays here that we haven't seen. You're going to be seeing in the next couple of days. And nothing happened. Nothing happened because it turns out the Iranians were very capable to push down the infiltration that we initially saw from this war and the last year war, the 12-day war, where it seems like the Iranian governments were infiltrated in a very bad way by Israel. But it seems like Israel's used all its assets, and a lot of assets seem to be captured by Iran. And so there's no more play other than trying to cause as much destruction to the infrastructure of Iran to ensure that they don't come out of this stronger, which I think Israel is still going to try to do. Now, let's talk about the MOU. Now, this MOU has been signed now over 2 weeks. And you have to ask, who does it actually benefit? Does it benefit Iran or does it benefit the US more? Because when you look at all the points, pretty much nearly all the points of the MOU have not been accomplished. With the stopping of the war in Lebanon and respecting Lebanon's sovereignty. Well, Israel's still occupying the southern part of Lebanon, and they're still carrying out attacks. Yes, they've reduced their attacks in Lebanon, but they're still destroying villages, as we've seen in many videos. Iran keeps on saying that this is a red line for them. They need to, Israel and the US, so it says in the MOU, it's usually US and allies, which is Israel, need to respect Lebanon's sovereignty. Well, obviously that's not being met because Israel is occupying Lebanon. And so it's going to be interesting to see what does Iran do about this, because Israel keeps on bombing. And we know Israel is incapable of entering into a ceasefire. We know what the ceasefire means, as we've seen with the Gaza ceasefire, where Israel has killed thousands since the ceasefire in Gaza, thousands of civilians, which includes children. But you forget Lebanon. I mean, they're not even respecting the sovereignty of Iran, as we've seen, 2 weeks ago, whereby the US, after signing the MOU with Iran, attacked Iran's coastal lines, apparently hitting some communication systems and storage for drones. In retaliation, what they say is an attack by Iran on ships that were using the Oman lane, not the Iranian-approved lane, which is kind of on the right, and the Oman lane is on the left. Iran's point is that we have control over the Strait of Hormuz as part of the MOU, and therefore we want everyone to be using the Iranian lane because we want to ensure that no supplies are going to, U.S. bases to replenish their ammunition through the sea, because that's a security threat for us. And of course, as part of this, we control the Strait of Hormuz, so we dictate where things, how things pass before we apply the toll fee or the service fee. It's not allowed to be called toll fee, but it is a toll fee in 60 days. Well, the U.S. has been escorting ships across the Oman lane, which is not the Iranian lane. And Iran sees that as meaning that the conditions of the MOU are not being met. And so they attacked a ship that didn't listen to their communication to that ship that, hey, do not pass through here. This is not the allowed route. You need to pass through the other route. The ship continued. So they attacked the ship, and then the U.S. attacked the Iranian coastal line, and then Iran attacked the U.S. bases. So they're attacking each other while they sign an MOU to say that they're not going to attack each other anymore. Not to mention, Iran, even though Iran attacked that ship, it wasn't a U.S. ship, that was passing through the Strait of Hormuz. And so Iran didn't attack the U.S., but the U.S. kind of attacked Iran, and then Iran retaliated by attacking the U.S. bases. Now, some people will argue that actually in the MOU, it doesn't say that the U.S. can't use the Omani lane. And it's true, it's not very explicit. It's open to interpretation. So there's a question mark on what was the actual agreement in reality that was agreed versus what was shown in the MOU, which was in a way to showcase to your people that you have a win, and both parties had to show that they have a win. And so they kind of used wording in there that was not very clear, that can be interpreted differently for the different groups that they are, each party the Iran is talking to and the US is talking to locally. There's this whole talk about $300 billion a fund that was going to be created for Iran with regional partners to invest in Iran. That will only happen if there's a final deal, and a final deal means a final nuclear deal. And for the U.S. for Trump to accept a final nuclear deal, it has to be better than the Obama JCPOA deal. Well, that's never going to happen because now Iran has better assets, more leverage than before. It controls the Strait of Hormuz. It went into a war with the U.S. where it survived that war and came out actually stronger, diplomatically stronger. It showcased that it has the capability to carry out, massive attacks. So it's a different world to the Obama world where we tried to avoid war. War happened. He killed the leadership. They survived. They controlled the Strait of Hormuz. They have more leverage now. They're not going to agree to something that the U.S. couldn't win through war. You couldn't achieve the things that you wanted to achieve through war, such as taking the nuclear material out, destroying their nuclear capabilities completely. That wasn't achieved during the war. So why would Iran given that you failed with achieving that during the war? That doesn't make any sense. So it's the U.S. that has to make concessions now. And that's going to be very difficult to Trump because he has to sell it to his people. And so how is he going to sell that? But on top of that, so the $300 billion, I don't see Iran ever seeing that, to be honest, because I don't think there's going to be a final deal. And on top of that, there was supposed to be $12 billion to $24 billion of Iran's frozen assets out of the total $100 billion of frozen assets that need to be unfrozen. Well, we learned that the U.S. still hasn't unfrozen those assets. What we've seen is some billions of dollars coming out of the Gulf countries towards Iran, which kind of indicates in a way, we don't know yet if these are Iran's frozen assets that were unfrozen, or those Gulf countries were just giving money to Iran just to be like, yo, relax, don't attack us, take it easy on us. And I mean, you saw kind of the airplane go from the UAE to Iran. Apparently $1 billion were transferred there. And following that, a coincidence that Iran stopped attacking the UAE. Maybe it's a coincidence, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it. Same thing with Saudi Arabia, same thing with Qatar. Sorry, I don't know about Saudi Arabia, but we know about Qatar. They also apparently paid a couple billion to Iran, and the attacks on Qatar stopped. So we don't know if these are actually Iran's frozen assets that are unfrozen, or that's just payments, like war reparations, for the damage that was carried out on Iran by, the U.S. bases in those countries, in Qatar and UAE and other countries. So none of the MOU conditions have been met except one, which is the U.S. blockade on Iran has ended, and the sanctions on Iranian oil has also been removed, and Iran is now supplying their oil to the world. Now, why would the U.S., all the 14 MOU points have not been met except this one? Why would the U.S. do only this one? Because it helps the U.S. The only reason why they are agreeing to this MOU, why they're even negotiating with Iran, is because of Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz and controlling the volume of oil that comes out of the Middle East. 20% of oil comes out of the Middle East that supplies the world. Well, the U.S. has been making sure oil prices are low and there's no oil shortages by releasing oil from their strategic reserves. These are reserves, oil storage that they have in the U.S. that is used in emergency situations such as what we're seeing right now with the oil supply disruption. And the problem with this strategic reserve is that it's a temporary measure to ensure that prices of oil are low, because they don't have an infinity amount of oil in storage that they can release. They can only release a certain amount of storage, oil from that storage. Well, that storage is going to be, the amount that they said they're going to release from that storage is going to finish in about end of July, in mid-August. And once that finishes, that release from the strategic reserve, oil prices are going to shoot up, and there's going to be oil shortages in the U.S. Some people think that, why would there be oil shortages? It's just that the U.S. is a net exporter. It's benefiting from all this. Well, even though it's a net exporter, the U.S. actually imports millions of barrels from the Middle East, whereby there's a lot of refineries in the U.S. that are structured to process Middle Eastern oil, which is different to the shale oil that the U.S. has. Shale oil produces different types of end products compared to the oil that comes from the Middle East. That produces different end products. So you kind of need both. Well, the U.S. needs both to create the different products such as gasoline, diesel, fuel jet, and all these different things. And the problem is that it takes 40 days for a ship to go from the Middle East all the way to the U.S. to be processed into these end products. So the U.S. had to open the Strait of Hormuz immediately. Otherwise, there's going to be oil shortages. And that's why that's the only part of the MOU that the U.S. has met, because it helps the U.S. Now, why would Iran, knowing that this benefits the U.S., knowing that they can't trust the U.S. has always gone against, said something and then did something differently. I mean, they've had that experience with the JCPOA. They actually entered into an agreement with the U.S. and Trump came and just ripped that agreement. That Iran was meeting all the conditions of that agreement, but Trump just didn't like it. Well, it seems to me that Iran also had to do it because of the economic situation that they're facing. They have high inflation. There's a lot of damages from this war. The U.S. blockade was putting pressure on the Iranian economy, and that's why you see kind of a bit of a conflict between different parts of the government in Iran, whereby the IRGC want to continue this war to kind of hit or create a heavier blow to the U.S. But parts of the government realize that if we continue like that, our people are going to suffer too. And is there a way where we can kind of mitigate the suffering or reduce that suffering, but still give a heavy blow to the Americans? No, there is knowing that it's very likely that the U.S. government is not going to get into a final deal with them, and knowing that they're going to not meet the conditions. And therefore, what Iran is trying to do is export as much oil as possible right now through the U.S. blockade, get it out of that area. And then when Iran or the U.S. continues to not meet those conditions, maybe put more pressure on the Strait of Hormuz, whereby you reduce the flow of volume coming in out of that to put pressure on the U.S., having moved all your oil as much as possible from that region. And we're actually seeing that happen. This is from tankertrackers.com. They were showing that Iran has exported 50 million barrels of crude oil since the US imposed blockade was lifted 2 weeks ago. So in just 2 weeks, Iran has exported 50 million barrels. Now, how does that work? Because how can you export 50 million barrels in just 2 weeks? Well, these are, so there's a lot of tankers that were sitting inside the Strait of Hormuz, inside the US blockade, that were just waiting for the US blockade to be lifted so they can get out. So this is not 50 million that were loaded in 2 weeks onto tankers, but these are actually exported out of the US blockade, given that it's lifted now as part of the MOU. So what will happen now, this is the confusion that people have, is that they think that because there was a US blockade, for example, that Iran wasn't able to sell any oil. That's incorrect, because a lot of oil that Iran had were already on tankers outside of that US blockade, either on tankers or floating storage that were very far away from Iran. And so it could sell from those tankers, from those floating storage throughout the war, throughout the US blockade, and earn money because it gets the price of that is really, it receives it when it's delivered to the end place that it's delivering it to. And so what Iran's doing right now is getting as much oil out of the US blockade. Not selling, doesn't mean it's selling it yet, but getting it to places where it can easily sell it when it really needs to sell it. So even if this war restarts now and there's a US blockade, Iran's still going to be able to sell 1.5 million barrels a day for by the end of this, if they actually export 100 million. Then, we're looking at an extra 50 days of 2 million barrels a day of being able to export, say at $70. That's $1.4 billion a day being made. That's a large number that it could sell, even if there is a US blockade, because it has all this oil outside of that area where the US blockade is, because it's moved it out, which is what Iran is trying to do. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why right now it's not doing anything to do with, all the things not being met as part of the MOU that we just went through. Because it needs to move all this oil to ensure that its economic situation is in a better position. And then it will start putting more pressure and being more aggressive with regards to making sure that the US meets its obligations as part of the MOU. And we can see here, for example, in the US gasoline storage, the yellow line is 2026, and these are all different years. And you can see kind of the US gasoline storage really shooting down now, and it's going to hit rock bottom in a couple of weeks very soon. It's the lowest it's ever been in the past kind of 5 years. Here, the dark blue line is the OPEC plus crude exports. The light blue is the US plus Russia plus Brazil plus Venezuela exports. And the yellow line is China imports, crude imports. So what you can see is that the OPEC plus crude exports have gone down as part of this war. So this is December 2025 to May 2026. So we're seeing this kind of huge decrease and then a slight uptick, which we're seeing now because of the MOU. And then the US and Russia and Brazil and Venezuela have increased their exports. And now we're seeing a drop. But the biggest impact on the oil price is this drop in the US and the China crude imports. Look at this drop. And China has really reduced its imports, which is one of the main reasons why we see oil prices not reach $150 as was expected by many of those experts. It's the reduction of oil, the China imports, plus the heavy release from the US strategic reserves that was ensuring prices are low. But again, that can't continue forever. China's going to have to import when it was importing. Yes, now it's probably using its storage reserves, same with the US is, to ensure that it doesn't import that much. But they can't continue using the reserves forever. They're going to have to, especially now with oil prices being lower, start importing again. The US is going to have to stop releasing their strategic reserves, and that's going to put pressure on oil prices to increase. If you did like this video, do hit the like and subscribe. We would love to know your thoughts about whether this war is going to restart, or we actually think this MOU is going to get into an actual peace deal between Iran and the US. Thank you very much.